Hey everyone, what's up? I hope you're having a good week, especially those of you in the US who are on your 4th of July weekend. So definitely make sure to follow the 3 H's of the channel: happy, healthy, and hydrated. And in this video, it's all about humanoid encounters. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, pull up a stump with me and let's jump into it. Thank you for watching. So the scariest thing to ever happen to me happened when I was 18 years old. I used to walk through this local watershed quite regularly. I would scout it out for the upcoming deer season. And this one particular time that I'm speaking of, I ended up being out there for a lot longer than I thought I would be, so I decided to camp out for the night. I made this little teepee type shelter out of some big sticks that I found, and I had a few emergency blankets. I make a small fire, and I cook up the MRE that I brought with me, a homemade one. And then I also make some powdered milk too. I spit that stuff out because it tastes like ass, but I pour the rest on the fire to put it out after I'm done. I go to sleep. The whole day has been uneventful. I wake up to a loud noise. It's not a howl, more like a roar. I run through the list of dangerous animals in this area in my head. A coyote? No. A bear? No. A wolf? No. A mountain lion? Definitely not. I look at my watch. It has a digital backlight. It's 4:50 a.m. The sun is beginning to come up soon, so I sit in my teepee with my hand on my revolver. I unfortunately made the dumb decision of leaving my rifle up against a tree outside of my shelter, so the sun comes up without any further events. I'm thinking, thank God. So I slowly slink out of my teepee and grab my rifle. I chamber around. I make the round to try and figure out just what made that noise. And then I see these weird, huge paw prints. I say paw prints because it's the only thing that I can think of that comes to mind. They weren't really paws. They weren't really feet. They were somewhere in between. They were huge. I put my size 14 boot next to them to see how big they are, and they're twice the size of my boot. I was terrified, but my teenage confidence and my Irish-Cuban-infused cockiness kicks in. I have to follow these tracks. They stop in the middle of the forest. They stop with nothing around. And while I'm following them, I notice that whatever it is walking on 2 legs. And I'm trying to figure out how these prints can just stop in the middle of the forest with nothing around. I scan the area. I see blood around a large tree. It's an absolute murder scene for a deer, but it's just the head that's left. No body, just the head and a shit ton of blood. At this point, I decide that the hint has been received, and I just leave the area. I make it back to my camp. I pack up, and I get to my truck. But the whole area where I parked smells like sweaty, wet dog. And I drive home spooked as hell after that, with nothing much else happening. But yeah, that's one of the scariest things to ever happen to me. So I had my own personal experience with a cryptid or unknown creature or monster or whatever you guys call them. I was camping with 2 close friends, and this happened in Hotspur, Victoria, Australia, if anybody was curious or wondering. We arrived on a Tuesday, set up the tent and campfire on a patch of flat ground on the outskirts of the camp because it looks nice. There were 7 other people, but they wanted to stay in the center of the campsite, in a cabin and a car. We talk about everything under the sun until about 1 a.m. when we decide to go to sleep. So we do just that. And then, somewhere in the night, we hear movement in the scrubland, not 5 meters from us. It ends up waking up myself and one of my friends, but then stops, and after a while, we're all tired, so we go back to sleep. And then later on, we're woken up to the most horrifying sound that I've ever heard in my life. It sounded like a mixture between gurgled laughter and a deep, throaty roaring or a scream. We all wake up. We're all scared shitless. We're all frozen with fear as this thing screams for 20 minutes until it stops dead like it's been cut off. Just as we start to calm down, these other things start making the same noise all over the forest. This goes on for ages. It finally dies down for a while, and then I realize I have to piss. After a while, I eventually get up the courage to go do that. I get back in my tent and sleep for a few more minutes until we hear movement again. This thing seemingly has been sitting close by our tent in the fern and scrub because it doesn't seem too far away. The thing seems to move around the tent and then moves deeper into the scrub, away from the campsite. And then we hear the horrifying sound again. Still not far away, maybe 20 plus meters. It goes on for a few minutes, and we hear other, louder vocalizations around the scrub. We're all scared again. And then there's this howling or whooping, and some kind of bipedal running in quick succession, and then whatever they are moves deeper into the scrub, followed by the sound of breaking branches. Eventually, we don't hear it anymore. There's a sigh of relief, and eventually we calm down enough to sleep a little bit more. What do you think could have done this? What could have made that sound? Some people I know have told me Yowies in a joking fashion, but I don't know. I feel like there's something else out there in the scrubland, and I don't know what it is. This happened way back in December of 2019. I lived in eastern England at the time. I was living in a 3-story house, about 50 meters away from a river. It was pouring down with rain. There were no streetlights. It has been dark and miserable for the past few days by this point. I was up that night, really late. There was no flood warning yet, and I was not working at the time, so I had nothing better to do besides watch the rain and play some video games. Eventually, I begin to hear something outside my door. Once every few minutes, I hear this mechanical clicking noise. Now my bedroom is on the 3rd floor, but past that door is a bathroom and then a stairway that goes directly to the front door. I check outside my room and into the stairway. I don't see anything, either in the stairway or in the window on the door. The restroom doesn't really have anything electrical in it, and the light in the stairway works fine. 20 minutes later, the click comes back in longer intervals, 10 or more minutes apart. It's starting to sound twangy, like a tin switch being clicked loudly, close to the floor. I go to the kitchen to get a drink. The kitchen has a glass door that also leads to the backyard. I sit on the countertop and drink my Pepsi Max. It seems that the clicking has followed me to the kitchen hallway. It happens in the stairway leading up now. I check the hallway, and there's no electricals other than the light, and when I check it, I don't hear the clicking near me. This house is fairly new, so the electricals shouldn't be screwing up from the rain. I head back upstairs, confused. The clicking trails off in intervals, and by 3 a.m., I almost get used to it and forget about it. The rain, however, got worse. I begin to hear noises outside the window of my bedroom that's facing the backyard. It sounds like mud being thrown around, the squishing and squelching sound. The backyard is mostly paved cement and gravel. I assume it must be a hobo passing through. And then it suddenly sounds like rock being slammed against rock, and I think this hobo is trying to tear down my house. The only thing I have is a butter knife, so I grab it from the kitchen and go out to confront the hobo. By the time I'm downstairs, I don't hear anything other than the rain. I only have a light on the front of my house. I turn that on and head towards the back entrance. I check outside with my butter knife, but I can't see anything. But I can make out that roughly everything is generally as it should be. I assume the menace has passed on to my neighbors. I check all the doors. I go back upstairs. I poke my head out the window and listen for maybe half an hour. And again, I hear the weirdest noise. It sounds like a slurping, but yet struggling for air almost. It sounds like a brain-damaged fish trying to slurp up soup really loudly, if that makes any sense. It's like 100 meters away, perpendicular to the river, and it's loud enough to hear over the rain. Morning comes, and it stops raining. My backyard looks like a toilet, but there's this greenish-brown gunk that's everywhere below an awning. A whole bunch of gravel has been scooped out and placed into small piles in the paved part. This same gunk is smeared across the glass door in large swipes, 3 big sausage finger swipes. Later that day, my neighbor came over and asked me if I was okay, if I had seen anything last night. I tell him about the clicking and about the weird gunk that I found in the backyard, even the gravel that's been scooped and placed into piles. This is when he tells me that there was something in my backyard last night. He talked about hearing a squelching noise, and he thought that for some reason I was outside in the rain. He stuck his head out the window to yell to me to ask what the hell I was doing. But then, he didn't see me in my backyard. He saw this black humanoid shape that had large reflective eyes and 3 fingers. He said it was doing something to the ground, and he decided that it wasn't any of his business, and he shut the window. We both were a little unnerved by everything that happened, and I guess I didn't know that the North Sea had fishmen in it. A few years ago, I was 15 and I was living in Alberta, and I was living in this small town. I was kind of out of shape, but trying to get into shape. I started going for runs. I was out one late night. It was super dark. I decided to go on a longer run since there was nobody around. I end up going out into this field, and while out there, I jump a barbed wire fence that leads into another field. I start feeling uneasy. I remember something that I had been told about the field that I'm in. Something like someone's corpse was discovered, stuffed in a couch in this field back in the 80s, or some kind of story like that. There was lots of old ruins there as well. There was a pioneer house that's somehow still standing. And for some reason, just seeing this house creeps me out. I decide to be brave and not run too fast by it. Don't want to draw attention to myself. But out of the corner of my eye, I catch something in the window of the house. It darts back in. I figured that it was some kind of animal, but I speed up running. I keep running for a bit, and I glance behind me. I can see an arm slide out from behind the house. A very white, sickly white. The elbows are in reverse, in the wrong place. I start sprinting. I glance behind me again, and then this thing is running toward me. But it's running all weird. It's like it's missing frames when it runs. It was all elongated and really screwed up. Naked, pale, white skin, covered in sores. Its face was the worst. The eyes were like human eyes, but turned on 90-degree angles, and bigger. Plus, they were black, and there was no nose to speak of. It had a massive mouth with bloody red lips and rows of sharp teeth that opened in an O. I'm sprinting as fast and as hard as I can, hitting parkour moves and everything, but it's catching up, and quickly. Up ahead is an old church. It's still in use, but it's kind of dilapidated. I vault over the fence, I fall, and the thing tries to jump it as well, but shrieks as soon as it passes the property line. It stares at me with absolute malice and hatred, and then runs off back the other way. I got a friend to come pick me up. I made it home. I still live in the area. I think of trying to find out what it is, and just why I wasn't able to pass over the property line to the church. What does that mean? Over the years, I've become floored by how many people have had experiences with crawlers. No doubt, a lot of reports and videos are either fakes or people jumping into the meme of it all. Sometimes, it can be just another animal that appears weird on camera. But I've had 2 experiences that I absolutely cannot explain. And even though I browse the internet a lot, I'm not really one to take this stuff at face value. I've racked my brain trying to think of a known animal that fit the color, texture, morphology, and gait, and come up with nothing every time. Both of these are in Canada, one in Nova Scotia and another in Ontario. So first, the Nova Scotia one. It's February 2021. I was living and working on a homestead with a good friend. We were on the South Shore, outside of Lunenburg. One day, I decided to drive up to the Bay of Fundy, across the province, one Saturday. The bay is due north, along a rural county highway, around 100 kilometers. Nova Scotia has the same geography as Maine. It's part of Appalachia. The highway rises toward the uplands and then plunges into a valley. Similar upland on the other side of the valley, and then the bay. Spring can come early down east. It's a mild, overcast day. The weather holds until we start to head back. At around 7 p.m., it starts to rain very hard. We climb the first set of uplands. The rain turns to sleet. Into the valley, it's now snowing quite hard. We cross the valley, and the snow is torrential. Walnut-sized East Coast snowflakes. We get over the second upland, and I'm beginning to worry. I was raised in Ontario. I was used to heavy snow, but this is bad. At this point, it's very dark. We were cruising down the highway in my 4x4 truck with winter tires. Despite the equipment and experience, we were limping along at 10 feet of visibility. We were going about 40 kilometers an hour in an 80 zone. Nobody was around. We were well on our way home now, and the highway dips into a wetland area. It's a muskeg or bog type of environment, a mire with black spruces. The highway passes over an area that has a huge culvert, and 10 feet ahead of us, something runs from my left side, my driver's side, to the right. A humanoid shape, emaciated, bright white, even against the snow. It looks between my height and my bro's. He's 5'8", I'm 6'3", so somewhere in between there. It's loping, biped, on all fours, and it has a gait like a human bent over. Its ass is in the air, its legs kick back as it gallops, alternating arms and legs. We were struck by how fast it moved. It seemed frenzied and excited. I didn't see a face, but the color and texture immediately made me feel sick. I was genuinely terrified. I spent many years outdoors, and I'm very comfortable out on the sticks at night. Instinctively, I locked the doors. A 5 or 10 good seconds pass before I squeak out, "Did you see that?" My bro says, "What did you see?" Clearly, we are both on the same page. He's the opposite of a paranormal guy like I am. He doesn't have any interest whatsoever in spooky shit. The whole trip now has a dark, eerie vibe. It's very oppressive and threatening. I speed up despite the road danger, the hair standing all over my body. We drive in silence most of the way home. Clearly, we're feeling the same. Once we're close to home, a more temperate microclimate, it's raining again. We pick up something to eat. We're still not really speaking. We go home and go to bed. I could barely sleep that night. The next morning, I asked a Micmac medicine woman friend if she had ever heard of that. She was very visibly bothered that we asked, and said that she didn't want to talk about it at all. I never did get an answer out of her. Nova Scotia is known for weird shit, but that was my first experience as such. I remember that it was just north of Springfield Lake that we had seen it. I felt a little better once I saw the lights of people's homes, and by Google mapping the terrain nearby to find the closest bog, I've settled on it being around 1933 Nova Scotia, Trunk 10. And now, the Ontario encounter. This happened a few years before the one in Nova Scotia. I was 19 or 20. I was drinking with some friends out in the woods. We were in southwestern Ontario, out of the side of Kitchener-Waterloo. My friends and family still live nearby, so I'm not going to give a precise location in case some weirdo decides to go looking for my family. So we were out behind my best friend's house. It's a damp cedar forest with lots of bogs. The whole gang is cooked and walking back from the oak savanna where we have fires. We were moving along the boardwalk, probably 15 of us. I haven't had that much to drink, but most of the group is wasted and stoned. I bring up the rear for our safety. The woods are dark and hard to navigate. I feel fine. I'm enjoying the night and my 3-beer buzz. I happen to swing a flashlight to the right of the boardwalk. I catch something darting through the grassier part of the wetland. I thought it was a deer, but I stop when I realize that something strange. It's white. I thought for a moment that it was a piebald deer, and then I stop again. It's simply too white. It appears to have skin, and it's man-sized. The gait and posture are wrong, but it looks bipedal, but on all fours. Its ass is sticking up, and it seems to be trotting or marching like a happy dog. There was lots of rolling hip action, almost like a skunk or marmot as it ambles away from my light. Immediately, I feel my voice catch in my throat as immense primal fear grips me. Suddenly I realize that if I cry out, the whole group of drunk dumbasses will scatter. Creature aside, confused drunks are going to fall in and be swimming, stuck in thickets. Horrified, but silently, I keep following the group as I swing my flashlight around. I'm constantly shoulder checking and looking left and right until we get out of that forest and onto the road. I never saw it again. It never tried to pursue us. It seemed afraid, or at least avoidant of us. I told my buddy about it the next day, and we shat bricks about it together. Interestingly enough, while a lot of crawler reports seem to come from caves or mountainous areas, both of mine were from flatlands. Even though Nova Scotia is on Appalachian rock, there's not much more than hills. It's mostly rocky plains and uplands, but both experiences were near bogs and wetlands. It seems the areas may also attract whatever these things are. So, what'd you think of all those? If you had a favorite one, let me know which one it was down in the comments. If you have a story of your own, or would like to donate to the channel in one of the various ways, there's an email, a PayPal, and a Patreon, as long as super thanks here on YouTube. And I found the Bay of Fundy one specifically interesting because I live just a few hours away from there. And of course this is on the New Brunswick side of the Bay of Fundy. So, if at all possible, I could just go there sometime, and hopefully not get clapped out in the woods by a crawler, but it might be fun just to go to the Bay of Fundy again. I've been there before, and I played hockey there when I was younger. But anyways, I hope you're having a good week, a good weekend, and I hope the next week is even better. And with that, make sure to follow the 3 H's of the channel. Thank you for pulling up a stump, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.